Today, for the Life Changes topic, we are going to be talking about a new infrastructure bill that was recently passed. Within the last few months, I believe it was passed in November of last year. And it's starting to make some headlines because I guess people actually got around to reading the entire bill. The crux of the issue is the language of one of the provisions in the bill basically states that all cars made at starting in 2026 will have to have what is effectively a kill switch, right? The purpose of the law is to limit drunk driving. However, what it's going to allow the car to do is to monitor your driving habits passively, as they put it. But if it detects signs of impairment or a raised blood alcohol level, it will be able to restrict or prevent the operation of your vehicle. And so I just wanted to get, kind of your general feelings about this legislation that has now been enacted and is, part of our new legal code and probably will, cause some problems come 2026.
First and foremost, when you use language like that, at least when it comes to law, and I feel like that language is kind of gray in the sense that it passively monitor the performance of a driver and then passively and accurately detect whether the blood alcohol concentration is above a certain level. Like those kind of sayings, it's like, how do you do that from a passive standpoint, and how do you do that accurately? And a lot of times what may be considered impaired driving, unfortunately, might just be the nature of that driver. Like a lot of people might just be reckless drivers, whether it be, purposeful, or that's just, they're not the best drivers and they might not have the best dexterity, or they might be old. Like there's still 100-year-olds, 90-year-olds that driving on the roads recklessly. We all know those people and we get pissed at them.
Facts.
But that's unfair for like the driver who might not be impaired under the influence of alcohol to have to be, regulated or even their vehicle stopped because they're considered impaired driving. And so I think what kind of comes into play is Big Brother always trying to watch over your shoulder. And it's just the next step in the government taking action to, with the proper intent, you want to limit alcohol related incidents on the road, which in Texas is a huge problem. There are tons and tons of deaths that happen daily because of this. And so they're trying to find the best way to mitigate that problem, but you can't do it by forcibly stopping someone's vehicle for impaired driving. So the operative word becomes impaired, and how does the government judge impaired driving? And so for all those the examples I had mentioned before, which might not technically be impaired, that's not fair for the driver to have to go through. So I think there needs to be kind of a more, this isn't a black and white thing for sure, but there has to be a framework in which they can work to accurately, which is a word they used, to accurately judge what impaired driving is. And blood alcohol will probably be the most objective way to do that. But that would require everyone to do a breathalyzer test when they get into their vehicle. And that's not something I personally want to do. So there just has to, it has to grow a bit. And for 2026, which is coming up faster than we know it, for that to be the start date for this to happen, is something we all should be aware of.
This kind of pushes on privacy concerns, in a sense, because, the old adage, the road to hell is paved with great intentions. So
I like that. That's
crazy. So it's like, I understand the want to, increase safety, but, you are starting to set a precedent where you can infringe on the individual space, of citizens or just, people within the country. And, to have this technology in the car, it's not just that, you are doing things to try to stop them, but this means that someone or something is actively monitoring, you in a space where you would otherwise expect to have some semblance of privacy, right? So how far does this go? Like, how much access will this thing need to determine? Will it need to be able to hear like what you're saying, to hear if like your speech is slurred when you're trying to, listen to the radio, or, so the ability of it to monitor, right? you have to be very careful with how far this can go. It's such a hard thing, right? Because it always seems like safety always has to come at the expense of privacy in
Yeah.
some form or another. And we really have to come to a decision, where do we want to draw the line?
I don't appreciate, the lack of autonomy the government is providing more and more and more. And to your point, privacy and security and autonomy seems to be the thing that kind of gets pushed to the side whenever you're talking about
Mhm.
safety. First and foremost, safety is a huge thing, right? And you see the strides we have made in regards to driving specifically, where once upon a time you could drink and drive. And, that wasn't
Yeah.
even against the law, and folks were just drinking and driving and swinging and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And then you have the induction of the seatbelt, and there's a lot more regulations, and cops are there hopefully to monitor those on the road. And then there's even a point in time where they tried to use cameras at traffic lights, to kind of monitor the actions and the flow of traffic and how things were going. But if I were to, try and provide a solution maybe to preventing drunk driving, the only way, at least in my eyes, that it could be feasible to do so would be to have a way to monitor a person before they start the vehicle. And back to what I had
Mhm.
said, the most objective way to do that would be through blowing it through a breathalyzer, right? But with technology, maybe there could be like a touch sensor where you can just put your finger on like a touchpad. You know how to unlock your computer.
Laws always sound good on the paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what people have to understand is like the law is
Yeah.
pretty black and white, but we live in shades of gray. And the issue that comes in with any law that you pass, it's always going to be rife for like, shortcuts, abuses, like, there's always going to be ways to cut corners. Like, for instance, and I think your idea would be a much better iteration of having a breathalyzer, but even with that, like, my concern would be, all I have to do is get someone else to blow in the breathalyzer. The car says, "Oh, you're
Yeah.
good to drive," and then I
Yep.
just hop in, right? You'd
Yep.
hope that you wouldn't have friends that would allow you to drive, would allow you to breathalyze your car to let you get in. But, at the same time, you'd also hope you wouldn't get behind the wheel drunk. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
And then also, like, where does the car cut you off? Because, okay, 0.08 is the legal limit, but I mean, driving at like 0.06 is still dangerous. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they had that whole campaign about buzz driving is drunk driving. So is my car just going to let me get in at 0.06 because it's not technically illegal? You know what I mean? Then
Yeah,
I
man.
get
There's a
into
lot
a
of
crash.
questions.
Exactly. If I get into a crash with someone that was buzzed driving and the car let them drive just because they were technically below the legal limit, I'm gonna sue the
Mm-hmm.
manufacturer and be like, hey, yo, like, you saw he was somewhat impaired.
Mm-hmm.
No, technically not illegally impaired, but he was still a heightened risk for it. And it's like, so that would be something. If I'm a car manufacturer, I don't want that weight on my shoulders that
Right.
I'm, doing this where I'm trying to judge people's impairment. And then also, how do they know, again, back to my point about identifying and, so much monitoring, how do you know who's behind the wheel of the car? Everybody's driving
Mm-hmm.
style is different. If it feels one hand, is it going to say like, oh, the main driver of this car uses two hands, so they must be impaired, shut the car down? Well, no, it's just my brother was driving the car. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
that means it has to monitor what normal driving patterns look like.
Mm-hmm.
Then it has to determine what that means to be impaired, and it has to do that for every single person that gets behind the wheel of the car. And it's like, that's just you're
It's a
going
lot of
down such
information to take in. Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think this can be contained in a space where you still respect the privacy of the individual while also, getting enough information for this thing to be an effective solution. And so that's where I just worry. I think it is too much of an invasion of privacy to do, something on this grand of a scale.
Yeah. And trying to have some foresight, like from a business perspective, those who are seeing these laws take into place, this is where a relic or an antique or vehicles manufactured prior to the start date of technology being implemented in the car that's, monitoring your driving might go up in value. And so now we see those who are owning classics, they're already expensive and, they grow more and more in value just because of the nature of preserving that model throughout time. Man, hey, this would be a good time for people. You look at the car industry and people think as soon as you take it off the lot, the value depreciates. But if we're going to go into a
Right.
place where you can see a projected date where all of car manufacturing is going to change, now would be a perfect time to, keep that in mind and really think about what the value of cars being made now is going to be in 2026.
Absolutely. Like my newest car will be a 2025. Like, like I will buy a brand new car in 2025 and that's it. Like I'm done until the law gets changed. Like I cannot see this going any positive way where, they have active ability to, monitor me in my vehicle. So yeah, I firmly agree with you and predict that the value of 2025 cars will not decrease, very drastically.
Yeah, it's going to change our lives, which is what we call it, the life changer segment, man.
Thanks. YouTube, the Spotify algorithm,
Smash that like button.
Can't buy it twice, so don't get it as facts. Your music is trash and the feature is tax. How you there broke, but you still moving packs? How you plan leading the pack from the back? Yeah, all my dogs will attack. Yeah, I don't bang, but I stack. Yeah, money I bring in the bag. Money I bring in the bag. Big bags, we securing everything that we ain't never had, and we like to pop tags. We meet almost broke when I'm looking at the dash, cause I'm driving so fast. We came a long way, we ain't never going back. Haters always ask how you get it like that. I've been working, I've been grinding, you ain't living like that. You ain't living like that. Yeah, I'm just addicted to winning. Yeah, this is more than a commitment. Yeah, money don't mean that you living. Yeah, you know I'ma start what I finish. Whenever it's broke, I'ma fix it. Get money and get out your feelings.